like what happens to Two Flower in Discworld. A guy comes into town, into a poor town, with this giant chest full of money. He is now a target for every ne'er-do-well in the entire city.
Right.
Not even necessarily the ne'er-do-wells, just like the occasionally do-wells.
Right.
And I don't think any of us ever, in playing any character that we've ever played, have attempted to conceal who we are. Basically, you want people to know who you are, and that's not what you want to do, because then people are going to be targeting you. They're going to know who you are, where you're, what your routine is.
But the thing is, anytime that's ever happened in game, then that's Mike screwing with you.
Sure.
Or that's the game master screwing with you. When in reality, that's exactly what would be happening.
You've screwed yourself.
Right.
That's another interesting thing. Dungeons & Dragons doesn't really have a recognition type of stat.
There's no renown.
No renown, no notoriety, no infamy, anything like that. But in Legend of the Five Rings, there is. Legend of the Five Rings, also, you're discouraged from looting anything.
Well, yeah, the whole monetary wealth thing is completely glazed
Right.
over.
I mean, you have an income as a samurai, so you're not out there trying,
That's not the motivation.
But do you really have to have a mechanic for notoriety? I mean, couldn't you just assume at some point
you assume as a player?
No, I mean they're dungeon masters.
Absolutely,
the dungeon master should be his job.
A mechanic forces the issue, whereas before the onus was on the game master to dole out notoriety, which is even harder to dole out than XP and money and magic items.
And also, the way you guys have a tendency of playing doesn't matter because you're on the move so much. It doesn't matter that you slayed something, 12 counties away.
Or 500 feet below the earth.
Right.
Who's going to know you did that?
Nobody good.
Right, exactly. That's a good point. A very good point.
So you're famous among the drow because
all this talk of this and this notoriety and stuff makes me really miss that character, Lord Vane. And he was nobody.
Well, he was just the horse thief, right?
Yeah, he's just a horse thief.
Hey, horse thief. That's
but he's
self-proclaimed.
He was self-proclaimed Lord, and he'd go around telling everyone that he is the Lord of this and Lord of that, and
so he was a charlatan.
Typical Sean character.
Yeah. Dressed it in fine clothes, and that's pretty fun.
I think in a game like Shadowrun, or maybe not so much D&D, if wealth accumulation could be almost like being a mobster, you would
right.
The only thing I remember Shadowrun is just how many floors down could you get in Dante's. That's where you were the coolest.
That's a purely Eric mechanic.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That wasn't that was not part of the game.
That's all Eric.
That was just something you came up with.
He should submit that.
Dude, I'm telling you,
that should be canon.
That was it. If you could get to the how many levels?
There's nine levels in hell, sir.
And then if you could make it to the 9th floor, you were just the shit.
Well,
subfloor.
Subfloor, yeah.
Yeah. Usually when you got down to 9, it was just Beast sitting there
by
watching,
himself.
By himself until somebody came down.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Dante's, the floor was transparent, or the ceiling was transparent, the floor was not. So you could look up
at all the schmucks.
At all the people above you, but they could not look down.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's foggy now at this point how much of that I actually made up. I mean, quite a bit of it was, but because there wasn't a whole lot in those days about Dante's. So,
and you could fight your way to the bottom if you wanted, but the lower you got, the more equipped they were, and it was really cool.
There were some nights it was nothing but Dante's.
Oh, see, that's I mean,
you spent a whole night.
We reminisce about this, but this is in game that's not wealth.
Yeah,
and that's why it was sustainable.
Right.
Yeah,
because you could go in as a noob in level 1 and try and see how far down you went, and then you could have a 100 karma character go in there and still you hadn't been there in a while. And you're still on the same level you were back in the day.
Right.
Giving out different carrots for the game.
Yeah, I don't think in all the time I played Spigoli, he never had any real wealth. I don't recall having any money.
That's because you spent all your money on drugs.
That's right.
That's right. You owed the Yakuza.
The Yakuza, tons.
It's because you entered your character. You started that character in debt to the Yakuza for all the cyberware you had.
Well, I do know one thing. In playing characters that accumulate wealth and become powerful, your characters end up rubbing elbows with people, NPCs in particular.
Sure.
Powerful political entities and whatnot.
That's true in real life.
And I know it's true in real life, but to me, that's something that it just doesn't seem to be a realistic, even in a fantasy setting. For the way you became wealthy, I'm not sure that.
Oh, you're like you wouldn't really hobnob with the true elite because you're considered new wealth,
you are
trumped up.
You are a barbarian from a foreign land.
You're a hillbilly who won the lottery.
Right, and you did it by killing and maiming and slaying people. Those people are not going to want to stand anywhere near you. You know,
Right.
and here you find yourself at the opera with the high priest of such and such, and next in the box.
Well, maybe that's just bad storytelling.
Yeah.
I've just got all this Clampett imagery right now.
As well you should.
The Beverly Hillbillies.
That was planted.
Yeah, that was a good show.
You bring that up, and then, but we would always get really, really irritated if, like, someone who was, let's say, the high priest of Bocob would talk down to us.
Sure.
And we were like, you know what? Why is he talking down to us? We're just as good as he is. Well, are we? Because he elevated himself through years and years and years of going through the system and whatnot. We killed.
Well, you
some
don't know that
dragons.
for sure, though.
That's a good point, Mark.
Yeah,
He could have backstabbed everybody.
History's told by the victors.
It's entirely possible. But trying to put it into a real world perspective, adventurers probably wouldn't get the props that they thought that they would deserve. Much like, you know, people who get money from lottery or
In that situation, say you're a 15th level gaming group and you come across the high priest of Bocob and he starts mouthing off to you. Eventually, somebody is going to say, I waste him with my crossbow, or something to that effect.
There's probably going to be a new priest, high priest.
New high priest of Bocob.
and he's probably in your party because
Right, exactly.
your wizard assumes that position.
You know, all this talk makes me want to play the non-player character campaign.
I still want to do
All
think that would be
like
fun.
aristocrats and sages and just
Pig farmers.
role-playing mundane things, and not adventures, not fighters, not wizards, none of that
there's
stuff.
you know what?
Hey, what you want to do? Let's go down pub.
In a,
Schmooze, with the local lord,
in a different genre, there is a game for that.
and it is.
Aces and eights.
That's true.
Aces and eights, you roll up your guy and you pick a career. That game is designed for you to play the average Joe. And you could be a farmer. You can be, just a cowpoke, things like that. And it's designed where you play your day-to-day activities as a simulation.
They have extensive rules just on driving cattle from Texas to Montana,
Well,
or
that's 'cause-
from Texas to Abilene.
That's because they're insane.
That's kind of hard to say.
But that, so if you want to play a mundane character, I mean, there are rules for that.
Well, I think it would just be fun to play a group of maybe like low-level aristocratic types in Greyhawk City.
Yeah.
Play the actual city portion of Greyhawk City.
Yeah.
Right.
Are we talking about the next campaign already?
I don't know.
Oh,
Okay.
crap.
Mike said no.
I don't want to run that.
No, actually, you could do that same idea within the Sea Princess campaign.
Just
They're-
us
they're-
sailors,
The ports have.
Isn't that what we're doing?
basically.
Yeah.
Getting back to Aces and Eights here for just a second. With the complete randomness of the character creation,
Right.
you could end up with one player having a character who is a prospector with tuberculosis, another guy who's a banker, another guy who's completely unemployed and missing a leg.
The Wanderer, yeah.
So you're saying
And
they would
then
have-
one guy who's a rancher, and then you want to play out your your cattle drive, and you've got one guy to do it with.
Well,
and some of them guys would never associate with.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I think, it just depends on how you put the game together. Just like any other game, you need a theme. So if you're like, okay, we're going to play cowpokes, you're going to do a cattle,
All gold prospectors.
yeah.
Get off my land.
Rifle.
You're
goal.
jumping my claim.
That would be an interesting adversarial game.
We're all in the same little creek.
Get off my land. Get off my land.
you doing that. I'm going to shoot you.
Two team up together. They find one big gold nugget, and then they kill each other for it.
With a shovel.
Right.
Hit you with my spade.
But in Aces and Eights, that combat would not take too long.
It would not.
Actually, no, that would take
Forever.
That would take weeks for like 5 minutes of
Actual time,
combat.
yes.
Well, 5 minutes of combat with a shovel wouldn't be that bad. It was once you start throwing in the guns. That's when it starts.
Oh no! All you would realistically have to do is shank them with a dirty knife and just wait
Yes.
it out.
Wait for it. Yeah.
Wait the 9 months for the kidney infection to kick in.
It's a long play.
Along the lines, we could also be mountain men,
Right?
like
Jeremiah Johnson.
Jeremiah Johnson,
Yeah.
Mark's favorite.
Or
No,
Liver
not
Eaton
Jeremiah
Johnson.
Johnson.
He was actually based on a real guy named Liver Eaton Johnson.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
So
And the last 30 minutes of his life was boring.
It was. I agree. I love that movie, but the last 30 minutes of that movie is terrible.
Nothing happened.
getting back to winning it big.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Johnson did not win it big.
No, he did not.
at all.
What was this topic again?
When do you hit it big in a superhero campaign?
Well, that's
when you graduate high school.
That's right.
the paradigm of that game is totally different. You can't really loot people.
Yeah, there's no get
because
big.
their gadget is strictly
Popular.
theirs.
It's when you're the most popular person in school.
My character.
That's it.
My character.
Well, that's
hit a
Hero
big-
High.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just Hero High. I mean,
We're talking
there's
about the hero, like superhero genre.
I was going to say, well, my superhero character in Hero High hit it big when she just teleported to Europe and stole a Lamborghini and a bunch of clothes and
Well,
and then hid the car in the woods.
You stashed the car in the woods, and then I later used it in a chase scene.
No, that wasn't hitting it big. That was Wednesday.
You can just buy your wealth up in Mutants Mastermind.
In fact, I did.
Which, Dan did.
It was wonderful.
A lot.
Well, I think what this says is there's no end game to a superhero game.
Yeah,
There
I
really
don't-
isn't.
I don't
mean,
think-
you could die.
But that's
I mean,
not really-
flat out die. And the genre being what it is, be right back the
right
next
back.
week.
But that's
Saving
not really
the world.
right. Yeah, that's not really the point of a superhero game. That's the point of the superhero game.
But
is
you're
to save the
always
world.
saving the world. I've
Sure.
read enough comics to know.
Yeah,
right.
I've seen enough crises.
Or you're saving the cheerleader.
Yeah.
Man, if they would have just left it at that, it would have been great.
I know. I tell you, Future Hero was awesome.
I know.
And
See,
they
that was the failure of that show. We never got that payoff.
Never went back to it.
That's a whole show in itself.
Yeah.
It's why
Did he get his
Jeff
job?
Loeb.
Did he get his job back with LucasArts or
Why are we
Skywalker?
talking about this? Why are we going down this
Tangent.
rabbit hole? No, I don't think so. No,
Snip, snip.
that's right. Making Dan work harder. Thanks.
Giving away different perks and things like that keeps the game, the monetary value of the game a little bit more in check. I think that if you give out reputation, you give out things like that, courtly intrigue, do more varied things once the characters reach that level. Like Mark's saying, you change the focus of the game. Now it's not so much about attaining wealth. Now it's retaining it, or it's dealing with the fact that now you're kind of a fish out of water because now you're not used to the rules. I keep thinking about Wheel of Time, the game of houses.
Not one dungeon crawl in that whole 13-book series.
Well, you don't have to. Well, I'm thinking more
The book reading a 13 book series is equal to a dungeon crawl.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking more along the lines of this is kind of how Game of Thrones starts. It started with the end game.
Oh, after the war.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. It was after the war. Everybody's already
yeah.
in place, and it's
It's
what
the
happens
dealing
afterwards.
with the afterwards. After the adventuring is
Right.
done.
Right.
Yeah, then it's retaining.
Ned and Rob had been in an adventuring party. They'd won the war and
They
gone off to
usurp
be
the king.
Right.
That's
In
it.
that
The moral of
case-
the story is don't go boar hunting.
Or have sex with lots of women.
Or marry a woman who's screwing her brother.
You were going to say something, Mike?
Yes, retaining the wealth and then ensuring that you pass it on.
That's another thing. There are also games that have a mechanic built in where just between sessions you've lost all your money. Conan, what's
Yeah.
Really?
The living in large or
Yeah, it's a high life. or
High
something.
living.
High
living.
It was like you've just pillaged the Tower of the Elephant. You come back, you get all this stuff, and you spend it all on booze and whatnot.
Well, yeah, the mechanic you're talking about is you go from one game session, and then when you start up your next campaign or your next series of adventures, you say, okay, 3 months has passed, and how much money do you have?
Smoked, drank, and gambled all your loot away.
So you immediately have everything you have on your character sheet.
Wow.
So that way it's because in Conan that's what he did.
What if you put it on a separate
He
notebook
pissed away
page?
all of the stuff. Fafhrd and Grey Mouse are same exact thing. In between stories, they would get stuff, and then the next story they'd be dirt poor, sitting on the side of the road, saying how hungry they
Well,
were.
we do in our games. We glaze over those things. We don't pay upkeep. We don't buy
stuff
food.
right.
or,
Because that's considered the minutia of the game that people aren't interested in. I am interested in those things, but I'm, I like doing that in a game for a character.
You and I had characters that built homes in
Right.
various towns and then detailed everything that was in the home.
Right.
Castle
Right
Guide.
down. What's
Yeah,
that?
the castle
Remember the
guide.
Castle Guide?
Yes.
It had
Castle
everything.
Guide.
I had the
itemized.
Castle Guide. That was
Yeah.
great.
I mean, it was down to every stick of furniture in the house, every spoon, plate, cup, whatever you wanted. It was all there, and it was just us trying to figure out ways to spend money. That's all it was.
The video game Fable. You can purchase property, marry people. You can have a house in every little section of the map with different and same sex partners in whichever town is like if they run into each other.
Elder Scroll, same thing.